Hi everyone, this is Dr. Essie Stacey, helping you to be well. Hi everyone, welcome back. Welcome to the fourth in the series for the hierarchy of health. And I'll wait a little bit as usual because of the delay with YouTube, and I'm gonna say hi everyone. So do post your questions and say hi first of all in the chat when you reach the site. Hoping that you're enjoying the new website as well. Thank you for those that have subscribed and those that plan to subscribe. Just so that you're aware that there's a lot on the website if you haven't perused it that is free. Lots of free stuff. And so all of the overviews, the website is organized into modules. The idea is to help you to learn how to look after yourself. And it's arranging different modules. So you've got probiotics, you've got prebiotics, you've got fats, you've got sugars, you've got toxins, and you've got diet to detox at the moment. So the all of the ones apart from diet to detox are kind of basic background knowledge that you should have. And for each one, there's an overview video, which is the free bit. And then once you subscribe, you'll see 4 further videos under that, plus mini tests, plus handouts, PDF handouts, fact sheets. And then the idea is that if you want to also do diet to detox, is that you've done all the basic stuff and then you can dive in and go on the step-by-step journey that is bringing your body back to equilibrium. I will be adding new modules each month or 6 weeks or so. So do look out for those. I'll mention them on the newsletter as they come out. I will also be continuing to do the webinars. Most people that joined me last week for Vida's webinar were just blown away. So do catch up on that. If you you can go back and watch that one. It was a free webinar anyway. So yeah, do explore the new website. So today we're talking about immunity, and because it's not a kind of a common, it's a common subject, but people, I get the impression that people don't really understand what immunity is. So one of my first questions is going to be, I'm going to stick a question up there. What do you think about when I mention the immune system? What does it mean to you? So if you type your answers in the chat box, if you dare, and we can address whether how true or not that is as I'm going through the talk. So yeah, what do you think about when I mention the immune system or immunity? What are people thinking when I mention that? So what I'm going to do is going to start with just a bit of a recap on how we arrive at this layer of the hierarchy of health, just to remind ourselves how it's all put together. Thank you, Harry. I got that. So Harry's thinking the gut when he thinks of immunity. That's good. Yeah. Any others? So I'm just gonna right. So I'm gonna start anyway. So do plug your stuff, write your stuff in the comments box. So This is where I bring my iPad in. And why am I sick? Hierarchy of health. So where have we come from? I love this quote by Thomas Edison that says the doctor of the future will give no medicine but will instruct his patient in the care of the human frame. Yeah, come on. In diet and the cause and prevention of disease. Now, Edison, of the light bulb fame, I think, wasn't that in another century ago? So we've much to do to catch up with his thoughts. And we've been through this idea, this modern medicine treats us like a car. If the headlight goes, we're going to replace the headlight. If the tire goes, we're going to sort the tire out. If the exhaust, something funny with the exhaust, we sort out the engine. And this type of medicine is the pill for your ill type of medicine. Yeah, I've got a cough, I need to go and get some cough medicine. And in my search, I went from the car analogy to the gut, and realizing that actually a seat of much illness is in the gut, and science does support that. When we're looking, I was given this framework that I call the hierarchy of health. You could actually see it as the hierarchy of hell, if you like, because actually this is what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be light shining in the universe. And if you were tuned in to Vida Austin's webinar that I did with her, where she was talking about water, this here is the water, which is the matrix of life. So you're supposed to be shining, interacting with your own water and the water in the universe. But then along come the toxins. The blue layer is the toxin layer in my hierarchy of health. And the toxins affect the DNA, they affect your water. The toxins also affect your gut. The gut is the immune organ, the major immune organ, arguably, of the body. So well done, Harry. That's one way of thinking about it. Thinking about it as, the immunity and the gut. And when the gut's not working well, we get inflammation, infection. Those two together I call the immunity layer. And then the body tries its hardest to deal with this ongoing chronic inflammation, chronic infection, by using up its resources. And these resources, your vitamins, your hormonal system. And then after a bit, in varying lengths of time in different people, you then get your symptoms, which is what we call the diagnosis. But the diagnosis as a symptom of all the layers that have gone before. So looking at the matrix of life, or the water, I love these quotes. Leonardo da Vinci saying that water is a vehicle of nature. Paracelsus, who was around the same time as Da Vinci, scientists saying water is the matrix of the world and of all its creatures. Luc Montagnier, modern day scientist, amazing scientist, says that water is part of our DNA structure. To transmit information, you need water. And then we had Vida's work that she introduced us to, a very small fragment of her work, looking at consciousness and water, which just blew everyone's mind. So Vida basically spoke to the water, and the water spoke back. So understanding the importance of water, and we can pollute our water or pollute our bodies with the toxins. We went through the toxins module, which where I looked at the main toxins that affect the body, the main toxins that I find in my patients. Pesticides, heavy metals, molds, and petrol derivatives like plastics. And of course, the thoughts, emotions, and the subconscious. I think the whole work with water and Emoto's work, Vida's work, Emoto's work, showing that our subconscious, our thoughts, our emotion, that sort of stuck record that I call it, that's playing in the background but we can't quite hear it, does affect our health. It affects our water, it affects our gut, the negative thoughts, emotions will behave like a negative toxin, well, like a toxin. So we went through the DNA, the toxins, and then the gut. And at the gut, I said that we talked about the gut microbes in this wonderful interactive relationship with our gut. And I introduced the term, the acronym TEF, which basically says that anything that affects the gut will also affect us, because we are in this epigenetic, if you like, relationship with our gut microbes. So the things, TEF stands for toxins, exercise, food, and frequency. And then when I mention frequency, everyone's like, oh, unless you've heard me a lot, people that are hearing me for the first time might think, oh, really? But I just want to make a little point about the frequency thing. Remember that radiation, cancer treatment with radiation is a frequency. There's no doubt about that. And radiation causes gut dysbiosis. It harms the gut microbes. And so we have a sort of an example from normal life, in inverted commas, that shows that frequency is a thing. It does harm, for sure. Electromagnetic frequencies like 5G delivered at 60 gigahertz have been shown, and if you're interested in any of the papers, they are down here. And the nice thing about the website now is that you have got the slides on your, if you go to I think it's my accounts, and then you'll see with the video, you've got the PDF as well, and you can click on these references and read the papers if you want to, if you really want to. But anyway, so EMS, when delivered at a certain frequency, can harm our microbes. And FIR stands for far infrared. So far infrared, again, is a frequency that, you think about the saunas, far infrared, saunas, etc. They improve the microbial patterns. And my favorite one was this one about kombucha in the rats. Kombucha improves the negative effects of EMFs. So, kombucha is the new garlic bulb, that ward off evil spirits. But drink kombucha, keep one by your bed, keep yourself strong. Yes, I just wanted to just talk again about frequency, because I believe that health, where we're going with our health, we need this understanding of frequency. So where does that leave us? So we've talked about, I make no apologies going over this, because when anyone asks me a question about their health, I point them back to this diagram, that it all starts here. There's you shining brightly in the matrix, the universe, which is water. That's how you're supposed to be, affecting your environment, not the other way around. You should be shining brightly and affecting your environment. But often what happens is it's the environment that affects us. And so toxins will affect the DNA, affect the water, will affect the gut. The gut is the immune organ. And when that's sick, then we get the activity or activation of the immune system, which is about inflammation and infection. So before we go on to that, I'm going to take a pause on me talking and just go back to there. So where are we? Hello, those people that have joined us. So Harry said that he thinks that the immune system is about the gut, and we've got also Rich and Kath saying that it's the ability, biological ability, to sufficiently combat infection, inflammation, disease, etc. That's a very posh, very succinct one there. Thank you. That sounds good. Anybody else got a kind of, just tell me what you think of when you're thinking of immune system. But I think, we have covered some of it there. And yeah, let me just wait and see. Anybody else? Any more comments on that? No, it doesn't look like it. So that I've taken us from where the other hierarchies of health up until the present one. So let's move into immunity. Let's have a look back onto here. So this diagram also, you'll remember it because I use it almost all the time. It's about gut dysbiosis. Gut dysbiosis this isn't gut dysbiosis. This is a normal happy gut where you've got effectively more good microbes than bad. That's the happy gut. This is the gut epithelial lining cells, that single layer of cells that separate our body from the gut lumen. I've probably done that the wrong way around. But let's see. When we have gut dysbiosis, we've got more bad microbes. We have then effectively what's called, popularly known as the leaky gut. There's gaps in between those epithelial lining cells. And we have stuff coming through, and we have the ninja peas being activated. So when we're talking about immunity, it is this bit that we are dealing with. And particularly the ninja peas. So I'm taking that part and in gut dysbiosis, well, this is the normal situation. We've got the gut cells all nicely packed together, and the body's on this side, and the gut lumen, the hole, if you like, is on that side. So in the normal situation, stuff can't pass through because we've got tight junctions. There's a barrier. That's the line of defense. And on the body side, we've got the ninja peas. Remember the ninja peas? So today I'm going to be talking a bit more about what are these ninja peas. You've heard me talk about them and talk about them and talk about them, but that's the ninja pea is part of the immune system. So that's the normal situation. You've got the gut as the barrier with no gaps, and you've got the lovely ninja peas. And they are, practically speaking, they'll be in a layer here, but they'll also be in lymph nodes in the gut as well. They're clustered around the body, but in the gut they are in the lymphatic areas in the gut. So this is the situation that happens then when there's gut dysbiosis, where there's gaps in the epithelial lining cells, and that's when stuff is able to come through. And that stuff, whatever it may be, will then activate the ninja peas. So they'll say, you're not supposed to be in here. I'm going to get rid of you. So if one of these guys comes through, the ninja peas is going to effectively just try and get rid of it, try and eat it. So that's the ninja pea doing their job with the stuff that tries to get through. Here we go. So let's talk about what is the stuff that comes through. So you've got infection, which is quite topical at the moment, because I guess the reason why you're able to join me in so many webinars is because we're in lockdown. We're in lockdown because of a particular infection. So if we can draw that supposed infection like that, and that's going to try to get through the gaps, and the Ninja Peas are going to be activated and deal with it. What about toxins? Toxins the same. So toxins will also try and get through, and Ninja Peas will come along and try and deal with the toxins. What the toxins also do is they will directly damage the gut lining cells as well. Remember, they will affect the DNA as well, but they also will injure the gut lining cells as well. And if you remember that I said that there are other types of toxins as well, what did I say? I was talking about the emotional toxins, the subconscious stuck record. What do I mean by that subconscious stuck record? It's when, what I've noticed in my patients is if there's a barrier to getting well. So for example, diet to detox is reasonably straightforward. But if there exists this sort of, I call it the subconscious stuck record. It's negative thoughts, it's barriers to getting well, which you as an individual may not be picking up on, but what they serve to do, they're there in that matrix, which is your water. They're there encoded as memory in your water, whether you're aware of it or not, they're there. And we know that there is a gut brain or gut consciousness, if you like, axis. So there's communication between these two. You can call it the brain if you like, emotion, subconscious, all of them. There's a two-way relationship between the gut and the emotions, and these emotions, these negative emotions, are behaving like toxins, and they too can injure the gut. They'll injure the gut microbes, and I'll cover that perhaps in a module. But so the toxins, they may be physical toxins, but they may be these emotional, subconscious toxins as well, and they will cause a direct hit to the gut and to the gut microbes, causing an opening in the intestinal barrier and then activating the immune cells. So this direct trauma, I'm going to add that into the middle. The stuff includes infection, toxins, and trauma. So that's emotional trauma, but it's also physical trauma, either from toxins or from things like exercise. So exercise can be good for you, but severe exercise can be bad for you, causes direct trauma to the gut. So you've got infection, trauma, toxins having an effect on the gut. And what happens then is the Ninja Peas are the ones, you've heard me say before, that are responsible, if you like, for causing the inflammation. They release things like, they're called cytokines, right? Cytokines are what's responsible, for example, for you feeling shivery, and when a virus comes through here, the Ninja Peas attack the virus and they produce these cytokines. They produce a whole host of things which then causes inflammation. So it's actually the Ninja Peas that cause the inflammation. So that is what we're going to talk about in a nutshell. I'm hoping that you've come with me this far, do write in the chat that you're with me, or give me a thumbs up, or something. So this inflammation affects the cell, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So I'm just going to pause there. Any questions? Before I move on, this is quite in-depth stuff, really. I'm hoping that you are following along, because most of you have been with me before. It's not the first time that. Thank you, Kath. Regina, what does that mean? I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, so this is not your first time. So I'm hoping that you're following along quite nicely with me on it. So let's have a look. So Regina's commented that she tried garlic, honey, the oil and kombucha mixture. So I did a webinar, Dr. Essie's Kitchen, where we looked at fig and basically salad dressing. And does that affect the immune system? So perhaps somebody else can answer that question and tell me why, if the answer is yes, why those things affect the immune system. Thanks, Lisa. And also thanks, Caroline. So good. So you're all with me, and I can motor on. Wash hands. Yes. What's that doing? I guess washing hands might stop you getting some of the viruses coming down and stuff like that. Thank you, Simon. So let's move on to the next part. So one of the things I want to say is that this is not kind of basic level stuff. I would say most doctors don't really understand the immune system well at all, and the framework that I'm giving you is the framework that all doctors and everyone should be using, really. But most of us at medical school, we're not really taught about the immune system in terms of joined up dots, really. And so I'm simplifying it for you, but I'm also simplifying it for medics as well. So anyway, let's have a look. So we've got the infection, toxins, trauma, if you like, to add on there. And the Ninja P is one of the culprits, which is the immune cell, and causing the inflammation in the cell stroke the gut. So what happens then is if some infection or toxin comes and affects the gut or the cell, the body has options with what to do in that cell or in that group of cells. The body can decide if it's fit and well. It will tell the body via various signals to die and regenerate itself. Apoptosis is a very posh word for programmed regeneration or programmed cell death. So the body will say, you're not doing so well. The cell will say, we're not doing so well. We'll program ourselves to die, and a new one will be made, and we'll all be nice and shiny and new again. So that's one of the options that the body would have if it's affected by infection or toxins. But might happen when you're a kid, but then as you get older, if you are not looking after yourself, doesn't have to happen, but if you're not looking after yourself, then what happens is you either degenerate or you get this abnormal growth. So degeneration is an almost apoptosis, but we're not quite getting there. So the body doesn't really know how to send the regeneration signals properly, so you get a degeneration. So that's a sort of a wear and tear wear and tear kind of situation in the cells. It's working, but it's not working at its optimum. Yeah, so it's working, but not at its optimum. You do create issues. It's a bit like arthritis. This is the osteoarthritis type of situation where the bone is doing what it should be, but not as well as it should be. And it's creating these bits of wear and tear areas. And then the final one is where abnormal growth, there's abnormal triggers happen, abnormal triggers. Now that may be because the DNA in the cells have been triggered, say by these things. Yeah, remember I've spoke on the toxins module about DNA adducts, so toxins that attach to your DNA, toxins in the water which will alter the DNA, alter the cell's function and flip it into abnormal growth. And this is what tumours are. Tumours are abnormal growth, cancers. And that abnormal growth can be benign, so it's kind of maybe slow growing and it doesn't spread anywhere. Still may cause a growth which can push on things and make things nearby not work so well, but it sort of is confined. Or you have the malignant tumor which is more aggressive. It might be going a bit quickly and it can spread around the body. So Regina's asking, what does wear and tear situation mean? It means that maybe some of the cells, for example, will regenerate, will just that have passed their sell by date, they die and regenerate, but some of them will keep on going maybe, but not doing such a good a job. So instead of regenerating the bone, they'll leave bits of bone. Yes, and that's where you get things like arthritis going on. So that's the situation with immunity. Immunity deals with, yes, infections and toxins, but this is the response. The response is in all of our cells either to do with its inflammation or cell turnover. So let's have a look. The Ninja P. Do I have any questions about that so far? What else have I got? So Regina said the reason why her mix, her salad dressing mix helps is because of the fermented kombucha. Now, having seen the rest of the stuff that I've done there, Regina, can you expand on that? How does the kombucha help your immune system? That's where I'm wanting you to get to. Any other comments or questions? So what I was trying to get across there was that infections, trauma. So if you think you hurt yourself, even if you traumatize yourself you're doing exercise or something, the body creates inflammation. With the inflammation, the body can decide to regenerate itself, or if it doesn't have the correct resources, and this is where the next layer of the hierarchy of health comes in, it may just enter into a degenerative phase, which means a breakdown. It's trying to do the apoptosis, but some of the cells may still be in broken mode, or you have the abnormal growth mode, which is about tumors. So, but the Ninja P is involved in all of those processes. Good. So, give me a thumbs up if you are with me, so that I know to keep going. So now comes to the Ninja P itself. So the Ninja P is the lines of defense that the body has after the gut. So you have the first line of defense, you have a second line of defense, and the third line of defense. All of these are Ninja Ps, right? Thank you, Catherine. All of these are Ninja Ps. First line of defense, second line of defense, and the third line of defense. And I want to describe what these lines of defense are. So the first line of defense, thank you, Caroline. The first line of defense is what science calls innate immunity. It's your naturally existing immunity. And I'll come to each one of these in turn and explain them in a bit more detail. Second line of defense is your T cells, which come from the thymus. T is thymus. Thymus is underneath your chest area, so a lymphatic, an immune area. And the third line of defense is your B cells, and your B cells are your antibodies. So a lot to talk about whether whether you've got the antibodies right now. And they come from your bone marrow. So these really, all three, I know that I've got the top one as green, but all three are Ninja Ps. They are what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the immune system. And so let's look. The first line of defense, the innate immune system. So when that stuff comes through the gut, the first things they get to are the Ninja Ps that form part of the innate immunity. And these are things, you might have heard me talk about them before, are macrophages. There's other posh words like dendritic cells, which sounds like they come from the nerves, but they don't. And natural killer cells, NK cells, natural killer cells, NK. Now, what's interesting about the macrophage is that if you remember me talking about Elie Metchnikoff, who remembers me talking about that? Elie Metchnikoff got his Nobel Prize for discovering the precursor to the macrophage called the phagocyte, which basically describes all of the below. Elie Metchnikoff was the guy that also was the grandfather, if you like, of probiotics. It was Elie Metchnikoff that found out that having a healthy gut meant that you lived a long time. Yeah, so when we're talking about this whole immune process, whether you regenerate or degenerate, is Elie Metchnikoff said that he noticed that Bulgarian peasants who drank sour milk lived a long time. So they lived a long time because their cells knew when to regenerate, and because of the integrity of the gut and the immunity. And he was the one that first of all discovered phagocytes. Now he at that time, so I've already mentioned the B cells. Science thought that the B cells, there was only B cells in terms of immunity. They said that was it, B cells and nothing else. And they said that he was crazy for about 70 years. 70 years until they realized that, oh yes, there are these cells that eat stuff that come through the gut lining. So that's Elie Metchnikoff. He was the one basically that discovered the first line of defense, the innate immunity. So that's that one. And so the second line of defense was the T cells that come from the thymus gland. And I find these fascinating. Again, most of medicine concentrates on antibodies. So you'll see for the virus at the moment, you'll have a blood test that will look either at the antibodies. They'll just tell you whether you've had the infection and you're immune to it. That's what the antibodies are doing. Or they'll look for the virus, right? So, but not many people are talking about this second line of defense, which are the T cells. Now, I used to measure the T cells a lot in my patients who have chronic conditions, let's put it that way, things like chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, you name it. I would measure the T cells. And there's a particular couple of classes of T cells that you may or may not have come across, CD4 and CD8. Now, these guys were made famous because of HIV/AIDS. HIV/AIDS affects the CD4, CD8 count. The actual ninja peas become infected by HIV/AIDS. Now, CD4, and what you can do is you can measure a ratio between the CD4 to the CD8. And normally you have 2 CD4 to 1 CD8. And you can look and people have, when they're in chronic states of ill health, they will have varying ratios. So the CD4 counts, these are helper cells. They're called T helper cells. But they're also regulatory cells, Treg cells. Now, the importance of that, the only reason I'm mentioning it is that these particular cells will stop your body from, if you like, eating itself, phagocyting itself. The Treg cells stop that happening. So it stops you from getting, if you like, autoimmune diseases and things like that. Now, the CD4 counts can go down with infection. So you imagine if you've got a chronic infection, your Treg cells may go down and it may open the door to autoimmune type disorders. It also goes down with age, and there's been studies looking at what that means when the ratio changes to a certain degree, and a ratio under 1 increases your chance of death, basically. CD8 count, what I've seen is that if the body has enough resources, remember the deficiency layer in the hierarchy of health, if the body has enough resources and you've got chronic infection or infection or toxins, etc., then the CD8 count can go up. The CD8 are cytotoxic killing cells. So if the body's got enough resources, then the CD8 count can go way up. But also, it will go up in obesity. We know that obesity is linked to inflammation. So you've got different conditions where it goes up, but also what can happen is in very chronic infection, you'll get a low CD8 count. And it basically means that the CD8 are clapped out. The immune system, if you like, would be clapped out. And we'll talk about why that might be in a minute. So that's the second line of defense. That's the T cells that come from the thymus, the CD4, CD8 count. It's a really useful test to do, although I realized over a while that I didn't need to do it, because actually if you follow diet to detox, you reset all of that and these things would come back within the normal range. So what was the third one? The third line of defense was those B cells that come from the bone marrow. They're made in the bone marrow. They're made in our bone. Oh, picture of a bone. They're made in the bone. And the importance of them, that's the antibodies. I would say, just as an aside, is the bone and the immune cells have this again, this two-way relationship going on. And when the immune cells are sick, they actually have a knock-on effect on the bone. And people with osteoporosis, they will have a degree of immune issue. So osteoporosis, you think it's just bone. It isn't just bone. Osteoporosis is also affected by the immune system. It's interlinked because part of the immune system is coming from the bone. So we know that, you know, immune system is important with bone marrow transplants, etc. That's the immune system. So inflammation. Let me have a pause there. How are we so far? Are you with me so far? So I've got Regina saying the ferment is good for your gut. Yes. And the garlic as well, and works against inflammation. Yeah, I mean that's good in broad sense. I would say we can, as we go along, you can perhaps tell me, perhaps be more clear in what you understand by it. Good. Any more questions? Are you with me? Is it too complicated? I have to say it's the first time that I'm putting all of these concepts together in one place, and it's a lot of stuff. I probably could have done a whole module on each one, but you know, well done for staying with me. So let's carry on. So inflammation then, what is inflammation? How is it formed? So inflammation, to understand it well, we need the mitochondria. So remember my mitochondria drawing that basically is looks like a pram. It doesn't, but that's my drawing of the mitochondria with where it's cut away. And this is supposed to show you the inner membrane of the mitochondria. Mitochondria is absolutely amazing. It's amazing because it has a structure which is like a bacteria. And those scientists that believe in evolution say that it's evolved from a bacteria and that somehow becomes internalized in our body and starts working in the body. I don't believe that, but it is true that it has these similarities with a bacteria. The other points to say about the mitochondria, it has these 5 complexes in it, complices if you use the right terms, which are the electron transport chain. It takes an electron and then produces an ATP. And ATP is energy, it's where we get energy from. The interesting thing about each of these is that they're all stimulated by light. Different colors of the light spectrum stimulate those 5 complexes in the mitochondria. Just an amazing thing. Anyway, but that was kind of an aside, but the mitochondria is where you can't sort of separate the Ninja P, inflammation, and the mitochondria. So let's have a look. So this is a picture of a Ninja P, right? So this is a picture of a Ninja P. In the middle, you would have the nucleus of the cell. And you've got the mitochondria. And again, as another aside, the mitochondria have their own DNA. They've got their own DNA, mitochondrial DNA, separate from the nuclear DNA. So your double helix in your DNA is in the middle of your cell. In the mitochondria, the DNA is circular. And it also comes from your mother only. So there's a whole sort of stream with that. But I just throw it out there. Amazing. They're amazing, amazing, amazing. One of the things to think about that we know about mitochondria is fuel goes in, so glucose, etc., and then ATP comes out. The other thing is that the the mitochondria will respond to the moon. The moon, yes, the moon tells it to break down and regenerate itself. It's called mitophagy. It needs the moon. And if you think that the moon goes through different cycles, then what does that mean for the mitochondria? But anyway, that's a whole other thing. So apart from doing all that, the mitochondria, if there's a stuff that attaches to the cell, the mitochondria will get involved in the immune process and create inflammation. The inflammation is a normal part of this process, and the inflammation acts as a signaling, if you like, molecule to tell the cell to buck itself up or to replicate or to get stronger or what have you. So it's not always bad, it's a signal. The inflammation is a signal. If you do hard exercise, i.e. the trauma will create inflammation, which will tell the body, better be ready next time and create more mitochondria, be stronger, and all of that. So that's the normal process with inflammation and the immune cell with mitochondria. What happens, how does the mitochondria get sick? So the mitochondria get sick when this process, where it's supposed to do the mitophagy, where it's supposed to break down with the moon, goes awry. And it goes awry when it doesn't get a rest. And it may not get a rest if there's too much glucose around, because when there's glucose around, it's in work mode, it's not in rest mode. It may not get a rest when there's too much infection going on. So remember, we had that red dot and then inflammation came. But what happens if you had lots of red dots happening all the time, red dots inside? Then you get lots of inflammation in the mitochondria, and the mitochondria gets overwhelmed. The processes within the mitochondria get overwhelmed, and the mitochondria get sick. When it gets sick, instead of producing lots and lots and lots of ATP, it only produces a tiny little bit of ATP when it gets sick. And that's when you start feeling fatigued. Fatigue is one of the unifying symptom of illness. You start feeling tired. If you get up in the morning, you feel like you're full of the joys of spring, then your mitochondria are likely to be okay. Get up in the morning, you feel tired, you want to go back to bed, then the mitochondria may need help. And interesting enough, this paper that you can just see at the bottom there, this is what they say. They're talking about the mitochondria, etc., and T cells. They're talking about T cells. So chronic infections. So this situation here, where you've got lots of dots, lots of stuff, along with cancer, results in T cell exhaustion. So ninja P exhaustion when you have chronic infections and cancer. So this explains how the immune cells are involved in not just infection, but also in the cancer process. So I just want to talk about the infected immune cells. So I used to, on my chronic patients, I used to look at how many infections there were within actually an immune cell, and you can measure them. And things like chronic Lyme, Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus, mycoplasma, babesia, Bartonella, Yersinia. So things like HIV and AIDS are also these intracellular infections. The infections are not in the bloodstream. They're actually inside the cells. They've hijacked the cells. They hijack the machinery of the cell. The body doesn't recognize them because they're not on the outside, they're on the inside. And if you go looking, some people may have 4 or 5 of these going on at the same time, hijacking their cells and creating sick T cells, sick ninja Ps. So the immune cells themselves will get that, will really get clobbered if they're not given a break. So what helps the immunity? So that sort of comes back to my question. Let's have a break. Come back to me there. What would we say apart? So we've said sort of kombucha helps immunity. What else would you say from what I've said? If you're not too confused, what would you say would be helpful for the immune system? Let's see whether we get any responses on that side. And let me, if I just go to the next bit here, maybe supplements. What supplements can we think of that might help the immune system? Can we think of anything along those lines? And maybe what's easier to think about then is, if I said that the immune system is made up of this sort of diagram with the gut and the inside of the gut cells and the ninja Ps, you could say, okay, what can you do to help? So I like this idea that exercise, because remember we said that moderate exercise, remember TEF in the gut, will help. So exercise, good exercise, it's the wrong color really. Good exercise is going to help these, because it's going to give you lots of nice bugs. There, exercise would do that. Not eating too many carbs at night, we'll come to that. I like, so diet, this is where the kombucha comes in, because kombucha is giving you, good bugs. It's giving you stuff that keeps these tight junctions safe and tight there. Stress-free. Remember we said trauma from emotions will affect directly, may give the gut a direct hit. So yeah, I mean, this is a good one. Fermented foods are more fermented foods, because you've got those bioactive substances that are protecting your gut. You've got the bioactive substances that are dealing with toxins. You've got the microbes that are the good microbes that are preventing the infection from coming through. Yeah, the good microbes are doing that before it even gets into your body. It's all happening on the inside. So let's look then. So we've done kind of the gut bit. So for the Ninja P, for the immune cell, you can look at specific supplements that might help the immune cell itself. The whole supplement industry basically is based on this side. So you've got the Ninja P, you've got the mitochondria, and then you've got the inflammation itself. So things like vitamin D are, so if the microbe, for example, has come through into your body, things like vitamin D will help the body to kill off the microbe. Things like vitamin C would do that as well. For the Ninja P to shore that up, we know things like mushrooms would actually keep the Ninja P happy and regenerating itself properly. And so that's why you'll have mushroom supplements maybe. when we look at the mitochondria, remember we said about the moon and the mitochondria needing that breakdown. And so, yes, I think somebody said there, a good fast overnight and not eating carbs till midday. Yes, that's a good idea. And so that gives the mitochondria its rest time, so that the mitochondria can regenerate itself, and then it can do its other job, its immune job as well. So the other things that the light, remember, so the light, I think someone said that, sunlight's going to have all of those five, the sunlight's going to have all of those lights, if you like, for the mitochondria to regenerate itself. So getting outside in the light will do that, regenerate all of those complexes, the different stages that the electron has to go through to be released. Other things like coenzyme Q10 is something that the mitochondria uses as its as a fuel, if you like, as a substance. And then you can target the inflammation itself. Big Pharma does this very well for things like rheumatoid arthritis. Dampens down the inflammation, the cytokine responses. So some of the heavy drugs will stop that happening to you. But you've got other things like frankincense, or boswellia is the other name for it, will dampen down inflammation. The cytokine will alter the cytokine responses as well. Now I'm talking very much in a biochemical sense, apart from the light, but things like frankincense, I believe, have an electromagnetic effect as well. So when we're talking about what helps immunity, absolutely, I think we've got to think about here. Our immune system starts in the upper bit. It's not wrong to deal with the lower bit, but if we can help ourselves by not needing to go anywhere near specific supplements if we don't need to. So Caroline said avoiding toxins in foods and things applied to your skin. Yeah, because these are going to be here. I've talked about the gut as a barrier, but the skin is also a similar barrier that can be breached by the things that we put on our skin, and it will cause a reaction as well. So let's have a look. So in summary, what helps the immune system? What about the water? Did anyone talk about water? I'm not sure anyone who did. Let's see. Water. Water is important because it's the matrix. Nothing works without the water. And when we put the toxins in there, we start putting a spanner in the works. So remember what Vida said is the water is subject to our consciousness as well. I remember what she said about, she took some saliva from her mouth and looked at that, and the last thing she'd been talking about was the number 8, and that 8 was there in the water. It's like the reading tea leaves. I know it seemed weird, but we know that water, it carries memory, and so we can decide that we're going to reset our water and do it on a regular basis, so that we begin to erase the stuck record and replace with a good song. So the DNA is going to help our immunity with the toxins, as Caroline said, as many of you said. Make sure we understand which toxins are going into our bodies and try and reduce them. And the gut, the TEF acronym, toxins, exercise, food, and frequency. And then we can look at specific immune targets if we need to. My powders do help. We all have times when that we may have acute inflammation for whatever reason. And so in those times, it's useful to have something that will knock stuff on the head. And so mind powders can help, or you might make yourself, I don't think I've done it yet, but some of the really strong sort of kombucha tinctures, if you like, which are really quite powerful. Or you might take some mushroom blends that are powerful as well. So good. So we've done you shining brightly in the universe. That's what basically I want you to be. But we know that we are restricted by toxins of different natures which affect the gut. The gut controls the immunity, and the body tries its hardest by using up its resources to dampen down the immunity, and that's where disease comes from. So I hope that was useful. It was like a huge lecture, huge sort of university lecture. Yes, so Regina says about oregano, tea tree oil. Absolutely, there's so much. That's why I'm not going to do that, because that's where your supplement companies come from, etc. And I think that we can make things a lot simpler by dealing with those inner things that I mentioned on the hierarchy of health. So any more questions? Realize that we're on to an hour, so just about done really. Any more questions before the end? Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. And I suspect that you're going to need to watch this a few times before you really are able to take it in. And if you've bought it via the website, then you'll be able to go back. As long as you are subscribed, you can go back and look at and you know re-look at this. Thanks, Caroline. Good. I think that's it. So next week, I can't remember whether that's Dr. Stephen coming back next week, or maybe another mystery guest. I don't know. So just keep tuned in with the newsletter, and do have a look around on the new website. Yeah, and let me know what you think about it. Yeah, and any suggestions. If you have any suggestions for modules that you think would be really nice to see up there, then do let me know, because I'm quite happy to create a module to go up there. And some of the things that I'm thinking about putting up there are things like osteoporosis, that really deserves its own module. Of course, water. I'm still trying to work out the different, where to put water. It's kind of is a website all on its own, isn't it? Constipation is one of the most common symptoms in my chronically ill patients, and people don't want to talk about it, but I'm going to put it up there as a module because I think people we need to get it out there. We need to get it out. We need to get it out. Anyway, so if you have any suggestions for modules, then do let me know. I think that's time to say goodbye. Thank you, everyone. That's it for now, everyone. Remember, change starts with you. Be well.